There we go. Okay, hello and welcome. My name is Maeve and thank you for joining us. I am curating this exhibition that will hopefully run and be excellent for the Glass Society. We have Ali, who's the vice chair, also on the call here, and she's co-hosting. So as I started briefly saying, this is a chance for people to ask questions and get involved. So if you have any questions, comments, queries, use the chat box or just unmute yourselves and ask or put up your hand and ask a question directly. It really isn't any kind of formal presentation, but because you feel like you need to give a little bit of a structure on Zoom, I did prepare a very slight introduction. So because I know the Glass Society has grown so much that I don't know everybody anymore. So I am going to go share screen and just share a couple of images. So it's not just my face. We will see a lot of my face on this call, but let's see if this works. My computer's like slowly running out of RAM or whatever its brain is. Oh, there's Evan. So can everyone see that? No?
We can see like a load of different images.
Oh. Okay.
It's not one big image, if you know what I mean.
Okay, I will try and redo that. Screen share. This one. This one. Okay. Oh. So just by way of introduction, yeah, my name is Maeve and I know some people because I used to be on the Glass Society board for about 5 years or something, from about 2012, which is I think when this is, till about why won't this move? About 2015 at the sort of solstice shoe exhibition in NCAD. So I definitely recognize a lot of names on the call and generally who we see in the Glass Society, but it's grown so much in the last couple of years that I don't know everybody. But I am looking forward to getting to know you. So in the intervening time since then, I've got my own art practice, but I've also worked a lot in arts admin for organizations. And I guess I didn't really intend it that way, but I have ended up curating, planning and programming quite a few exhibitions, and I guess I I enjoy it, or otherwise I wouldn't do it. So this is a show that I did when I worked in Craft NI called Images Need Apply back in 2017. I worked at a print workshop for a while, did a lot of pretty standard gallery shows with images and things on a wall while I worked there in different galleries. Then in 2020, in lockdown, when the world went a bit weird, many of you will see, because it was in last year's publication, I did quite a few pop-up exhibitions under the sort of project name Liminal Space Belfast. This was kind of the first one in an alley behind my house. It grew legs and got multiple different partners involved. And then we did a bigger version in like multiple locations in 2021 with a couple of different partners. These are some of the spaces that were used. Kind of had a bit of a review exhibition over the work that was there too far. And then the most recent iteration, oh yeah, also what did I even put in this? Also, I was on the board of an artist-led gallery space for a while, and did one of the highlights of the time there was we did this like pop-up postcard exhibition in a disused car park as part of this like summer festival that they were doing. We got lots of people to submit images and put them up, and it was great because it lasted way longer than it was meant to, and they all kind of interacted with the rain and eventually started disappearing. And then the last version of the Liminal Space Belfast project happened in March this year and took place in like 3 different places of the city. So I guess by way of introduction, for anyone that didn't know who I am, I have a background in glass, and I guess I've got a fondness for managing and looking after exhibitions in unusual spaces, and that's why I've kind of gotten involved with this project, which is an exhibition in a garden, but an exhibition in a garden with a twist. So that's who I am, and that's what my role in the project is. What I have prepared are some sample like application videos, because I know that a lot of people would be a bit nervous of sort of making a video. Oh, I don't know how to do that, I don't have the right software. And hopefully what it will show is that like really we're not judging the quality of your production skills. I made all of these in one day and they're quite cringy. And it just will show you that all of yours will be way better than that. But before I show you more of my face and me talking, I thought I would just open for questions. If anyone who has any questions, obviously you're interested if you're on the call. So please use the chat function. What do you mean by garden with a twist? I mean, it is a garden, as in the location for this exhibition is a garden, but it's a wild garden. So when we were talking through the idea, it was like, well, what is different from something like sculpture in context or like form, or one of the more formal kind of sculpture exhibitions in a garden? And the difference is that obviously there it's sort of set up to last and be kind of quite managed and quite organized, where this is, if you look up the website for the space, it's quite a it's quite wild, it's quite natural, and that's kind of the whole ethos behind the garden. So yeah, it's a garden, but it's kind of a managed wild garden. How did this exhibition come about? Well, the concept was dreamed up mostly by myself and Roisin, but it came out of the initial glass chats that we had back in January about what are we going to do for the year of glass, and the fact that the theme that the Glass Society picked was climate change slash Ali climate change.
Yes, sustainability and climate change.
Yeah, sustainability and climate change. So we thought to ourselves, like, wouldn't it be great if we had something that was a bit different, a bit more towards the natural world, but also the key idea was that it was an opportunity to showcase stuff that wasn't necessarily new, but it was a very different context for work that was already existing. Because I think as makers, you know, you can feel that environmental guilt slightly of like, oh, I'm always making these things and suddenly I've got boxes and boxes of these things that didn't sell. What do I do? And most shows demand that you have work made within the last 3 years. So it was to kind of turn that on its head and say, okay, well, we already have a lot of collections of our own work, or at least most of us do. Maybe you're really successful and you don't have any, but yeah, most of us definitely have that collection of our own work. And so it's a chance to get that out again and have it sort of seen in a new light. So what other questions were there? What sort of work are you looking for? Well, like, sky's the limit, you know, what sort of work would you like to show? Because I guess the parameters are really going to be like, can you transport it there? And are you okay with the sort of risks that are inherent with putting your work in this kind of context? Like when I did the alleyway exhibitions, it was always sort of stated to the artists and made sure that like when I worked with them, that it was very clear, like, okay, we are putting this out here, but maybe if you're like a printmaker, maybe you want to put in a reproduction of your print rather than like an original print, for example, because of the risk of it being outside, of potential damage. There is that. For the most part, if it's work that is transportable, you are there with your work, so you are going to be looking after it. It is an exhibition and a gathering, because the other reason, to go back to the earlier question, the other thing that we were keen to have that I think are all really missing is the opportunity to bring everyone together. And Zoom is great for information sharing, but it's not really great for an experience. So that was the other reason of having it as an exhibition and gathering. Did I answer that question correctly? In terms of the artist or their proxy being present at the exhibition, is that for both days or just one? Ideally, it's for both or the majority of both, because you want you to be there with your work, but obviously we understand that people might have responsibilities, but yeah, somebody would be there minding it. There has been talk of, but I can't verify this exactly because Roisin's not with us, and the garden owner is her kind of contact. But there has been talk that we would be allowed camp, if you're into that kind of thing, just to stay with the work, or at least that some people would do that, to stay with the stuff overnight. But we can look into other options. My initial idea was that we would just do one day, and if the logistics of 2 days are too difficult, maybe that is what we could change it to. So certainly any written feedback around that is very welcome, and we can make a call on it. But 2 days was also was a nice idea, to have a public opening and also enough time to run things like having meals together, getting around everybody's work, making sure it's documented, it's seeing in things like different lights. If plinths and other tools are to be kept to a minimum, how do you envision presenting work, especially smaller, delicate pieces? There's a lot of what you might call natural stages in the space, like it is. If you have the possibility to go and see it, I would really recommend it. There's like a lot of spaces that are off path that you could potentially position something, so it wouldn't be that anyone was really near it, because you walk through the garden and majority, you can't go off the path, but the majority of people will stay on the path. But for installing your work, you could go to sort of like a natural stage off to the side. Obviously there's the option of hanging things from things like branches or fences, or it really depends on what the work you want to show is. And I guess for argument's sake, you could even suggest, I don't want to say lots, but like 2 minutes goes really quickly, but you could suggest, I think I want to show this piece, but in the end, maybe you slightly, you still get in the show, but we will have I will have a conversation with you about how you, before we get there on the day, about how you think your work is going to be situated and what kind of support you need. There was another question below that, which was, will we install our own work? Yes, but everyone will help each other. So, there's the kind of be a part of an element of like, where do you think that is? And then, kind of coming together, somebody else might want to show their piece near yours. And that could be problematic if they clash, but it also could work really well if they complement each other. So this is a very I call it the cart before the horse kind of thing of like, this is how I think it will go, but also I can't say for definite until I know what people want to show, because at the end of the day, it's all about what you want to review. in that context. What time are we? Is it open to the public? Yes, the plan was that we would have a public opening on the Saturday evening. You know, very brief, very ephemeral. The first exhibition that I did was only open for 4 hours, but yet it reached, I mean, it was locked down, so everything online reached lots, but you know, it had a really massive reach of people. So, you know, if people can come, I'm sure just the logistics of the time and the venue and the place, we wouldn't have a massive like public opening. But if there's people that you want to bring and come along, or you know, if you're relatively nearby, it is open to the public as a space. So we can also invite people to go to it for like a limited time over that weekend. Yes. Is there a designated area in the garden? It's not actually as massive as you might think it is. So like it's quite walkable, but we have basically, you know, arranged like that we can take over most of it. But I think people's work is probably mostly going to focus in like the meadow, the kind of wilder tree bit, the kind of foresty bit, rather than the more managed sort of flower bed part of the garden. But yeah, no, it's the whole space. It's not like a park. Um, can one collaborate with another artist? Oh, right. Can one collaborate with another? Absolutely. But you will have already collaborated with another artist for that piece because this is about older work. If that makes sense. So if you've got a piece that has been a collaboration and the other person isn't a Glass Society member, I think that's fine as long as you're a Glass Society member. And it doesn't even have to all be of glass, but obviously it would be nice if the majority of them were. Process. After the submission, will it be curated, or do we have a choice in where it might be? Yes, we're asking you to tell us where you think it would be good. And then when we have an idea of what people want to show, I will work with you on how that happens. We will have some other jurors selecting, and that's really just from a quality point of view. But myself, I find it, you know, I think probably if you follow the process and answer the questions, I think it's going to be really hard to say no to anybody. But at the same time, it's good to have an outsider perspective on your work, and you might be surprised in why they think it's interesting and why they think it's worth reviewing, and those comments will be, you know, like made available to you. I'm really conscious of time. In terms of documenting, yes, we are hiring a professional photographer / videographer. They haven't been appointed yet. We're in the process of getting quotes. And we wouldn't want artists to pay for that. That's something that the Glass Society is going to pay for. So do both pieces have to be old? If for some reason you don't have work that is older than like 5 years, you know, if you're like a recent graduate or you just don't have anything, we'd also be happy with something that you're maybe, you know, you haven't really shown before, or that like you know, maybe haven't resolved. It's something maybe unfinished in your studio. In your video, that is the point where you tell us why you want to make something. Can old work be remade? I mean, I guess it could, but that seems like cheating the system. The point of asking for old work is that we're not making anything new, and therefore reducing, you know, the kind of reduce, reuse, recycle. So if you make something new, to fill in for something old. Like, I kind of think that I don't know why you'd want to do that. Maybe just so you've got a copy of it, or, but I don't know. It's really it's gonna be hard to answer some of these questions until we've got an idea of what it is. Um, oh, that's a question. Could someone submit a suitable piece of antique Irish glass? Never thought about that before, but like really like the idea. But also just be mindful that like that it would be safe and that it would be okay. And if you were along for the weekend, like you'd be minding it. Everyone would be minding it, but you would be minding it more. Okay, I feel like I've talked loads, which I'm good at, but I am now going to show you some sample videos that I made, just so you can have an idea of like how not scary that is. Basically, I've made one using Instagram Reels, and it's actually in two parts because I couldn't figure out how to stitch them together. But there is software to do it. So one with that, so that's an option. I've made one by Zoom calling myself and recording it, and I've made one by narrating a PowerPoint. So they're all 3 minutes each. So I'll play them one after the other, and then we can maybe, if you've thought of some more questions, I'll come back to that. And you can unmute, so I don't feel like it's just me talking when I come back after watching the video. Okay.
Maeve, when you're doing your screen share, just remember to share the audio.
Oh yeah. You keep me right, Ali. Pro tip. Sorry. Right. And how do I do that again? It's audio settings.
When you go to screen share,
advanced. No.
Let me have a look now. So there's down on the bottom when you click on screen share, down at the bottom, share sound.
Sorted.
Yeah.
The piece that I would like.
Okay. Easy.
Hi, I'm Maeve. I am an artist originally from Dublin and now I'm based in Belfast. I sometimes work with glass, I guess, but I guess I'm interested in it because it's like the closest thing materially you can get to like not being there. And the piece that I would like to review is some work that I had in my degree show pushing 10 years ago. The body of work was called Intangible Objects, and they were basically glass clouds made out of these sort of like thin glass lines. They did really well ages ago, but they've been since living in my parents' attic and other storage boxes for the last number of years. And it would be really lovely to get them out and see them again, because although loads has happened in the last 10 years, I'm still very much interested in my practice the same kind of thoughts and ideas that I was when I made them, which goes to show that people don't really change. I'll show some pictures of it now. Yeah, as you can see, they are in a variety of sizes and different shapes. To describe those pieces in a little bit more detail, they are basically fused and slumped canes. There's a variety of sizes. I think I would like to bring maybe one or two of the smaller ones that I can find. And I think because they're clouds, hanging them is just the way to go, especially outside. It would be really beautiful to see them hanging off like a tree, or I don't know, a fence post or something where they can like even interact with the wind a little bit. I'm really not precious about them because they're that old, and let's face it, they're not having much of a life in the attic. So I think maybe somewhere near the woods, somewhere near the stream. It would be really nice to see them again, and also just chat with people about what they kind of remind them of, and how they work. So I'll show you something that I've done recently, which shows that I haven't changed. Yeah, so those were made of plastic, but still very much cloud-like, fragile, delicate, and nearly there. So yeah, be great to bring them out of a white room and into nature. Thanks.
Okay, it's very cringy to watch these back. I'll go on to the next one. You're like, oh, Jesus, why did I do this so badly? So I hope that proves the point that probably whatever you do will be better than that one. And the quality of your videoing and how you present yourself are not being judged. We're only going to look for the answers that you give. So the questions that are outlaid on the website, where it says, you know, tell us who you are and what you do. Tell us what piece you would like to review and why. So we're basically asking you to tell us like the story in that particular example. You know, I'm saying that it was my degree show work. It's been in boxes since. I'd like to get it out again. And then also just a little bit, it doesn't have to be an exact idea. We're not asking for an exact proposal, but like where you kind of think it would work. And that's all we're asking you to go on. So I am going to show you the second
Before
version.
you do that there, Maeve, Susie, did you get my message back there? The sound on that was quite low, so it might just mean turning up your volume.
Okay.
But I'm not sure, there might be an issue. Like I heard it, but
yeah, it was really low.
It was quite
I will
low.
try turning it up further for the next one, but it could have just been because it was recorded on a phone. So this one may be better. Okay, go on to this one. Share screen. Hopefully this is louder.
Two on Zoom.
Oh.
Right.
Was there audio? No.
Yeah, I heard a little bit of audio, but again, it's very, very low.
I don't know what I can do about that. I'm sorry. It's just like it's as high as I can go on the video, but maybe you can hear it in the recording. I'll actually just share the links to the videos with everybody, and then maybe it will be louder on your own device because I have them all in a Google file. But
my name is Maeve McElgurm, and I'm an artist. I am originally from Dublin, and now I live and work in Belfast. I studied glass in NCID about 10 years ago, and it still regularly shows up in my sort of practice now. So for the review exhibition, the piece that I would love to take out and give a bit of breath of fresh air to is now on.
Just gonna skip through some of them because it's the same stuff. But yeah, if you Zoom call yourself and then screen share.
This work was called Intangible Objects, and they are basically
it's a good way
kind
of
cloud.
Good way of showing, like, you know, you could share a video in this way within your video, you could share an image, you know, you could share if you had a kind of proposal or a drawing or something like that of how you thought it would work, you know, you could put all of that onto your computer and then record it in a video like this. Mostly though, it's just about how are you telling us the story of what you want to review and where do you think it would go. Once we have that information, we can work with you on the kind of logistics of it. Here's another version, which is like a narrated PowerPoint. So if being on screen yourself and live is really scary and you just don't want to do it, this is another option. If you have the actual PowerPoint software, and it probably works in whatever the Apple version is too, if you put together like a presentation, it gives you the option to record an audio with each slide, and then you can export that as a video. So in this one, added my name, added images of the same pieces that I'm talking about, and then at the end, I talk about where I think that they would work, and then also the logistics of like what size are these. So some of them are relatively big, but I would bring smaller ones. Maybe I'd bring 2, maybe I'd bring 3, that kind of thing. It doesn't have to be a really definite proposal. Once we have an idea of what you want to show and why, we'll work with you to come up with like a couple of options. I'm sorry about the sound, but I will put links to all of them on my Google Drive in the chat box now, so you can watch it after if you're curious. Not that you probably want to. Right. Any more questions?
I think you've done a great job, Niamh. So we just need to keep thinking.
Is this the chat? Yeah, this is the chat. Okay, that should be the link. Can the old piece be reviewed and completed? Yeah, sure. If you've got one of those pieces that like, you never really felt was resolved, or like, maybe it was shown, but maybe something happened to it. Like, that's a story that we're interested in hearing too. But from the point of view of using something old, it is going against the usual, the idea of this and trying to do something different is going against the usual, this is an exhibition of craft. You have made new work within the last 3 years, like we wanted to be cutting edge. And then, maybe you've got old work that you want to revisit. And also I think our attitude to pieces, can change after a while. You might have something in the box for 5 years, and when you get it out again, you're like, oh, I remember what I was kind of thinking when I made that, or, I actually see that in a different way now. It kind of the purpose of bringing some of that stuff out is to hear the story behind it and, see, is that still relevant? Sort of share it with your friends, because I think particularly after the last 2 years, we've all spent a lot of time in our own heads and in our own studios as makers. We spend a lot of time in our own studios anyway, and like looking at something that's a bit older in a new context, in literally a new light, because it's never been in a beautiful wild garden before, could be quite interesting from a development point of view. So can it be an experimental piece and not perfect? Absolutely. Absolutely. That would be kind of ideal, if it's stuff that you're not precious about, like there's still a quality element, but what's perfect, we're also always our own worst critic. So maybe there's a piece that like, you're like, oh, I had this series of bowls and this bowl chipped, and therefore I didn't sell it, and that's why I still have it. And it becomes a kind of, it's still a memory of that series or whatever that you made, but it's like the not perfect one. That's fine. I guess just from a from an artistic standpoint, that not that you tell us why it's not perfect, but you could kind of explain a little bit about that in the story, kind of like how I know you couldn't hear it very well, but in the first video, like I sort of said, these pieces I'm surprised that some of them are still alive, but they're really not having any lease of life in my parents' attic. So, why not bring them out to a garden and see what happens? And I'm not saying that like it should be a piece of work that you're, that you don't want to look after. Obviously, it's a piece that you care about, but something that you're maybe not so precious about is a good idea. So if it is that piece that hasn't been quite resolved, that hasn't that was a bit of an experiment, I think that kind of thing is ideal, because the story is just as interesting as the work in this, and having you there with your work and in a new context and with your peers. Very often, especially for like craft exhibitions, you go and there's the opening, and you all talk to each other about life, but you don't actually talk to each other about your work and what it is. And you don't really you're just there for an hour, and you don't really spend a lot of time with each other's stuff to find out, okay, well, what is that? What were you thinking? So yeah, I guess we're trying to just do something a bit different, and have the documentation, I guess the bit that will be more like a typical exhibition will be the kind of after the legacy bit, where we've got lovely images and video and photographs, and that's sort of displayed online, like, oh, here's the piece and this is what it was, and that side of things. But I think over the weekend it will be an unusual exhibition / gathering. Any final questions, comments?
I'm going to say to people that don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help, especially in the Facebook group. Help each other, especially when it comes to the tech side of things, with doing a video of yourself. Ask for help if you do need the help.
Yeah, totally. Really, really happy to do that. Or if two of you are doing it together, Zoom call each other and one of you record it and then say, look, here's a double submission, and then it's like 2 for the price of 1. These are all options. There's not a very strict format for how we want you to present that information, because when you do something new, there's a bit of there's a little bit of uncertainty around how will it work and does this work. But we also wanted it to be open to people who maybe feel that sometimes the traditional, I write the proposal and I put it in and I put my CV in it, who feel that isn't really for them. So hopefully it is appealing, and yeah, open to any feedback and comments that you might have. If you want to chat to me like directly about anything, send me a message on Instagram, or my email is, because I know the Glass Society is technically meant to be on holidays in August. So you can ask me things at this email.
Cool. Maeve, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
And I already put it in there, but I'm still a little bit unclear about when you were saying about keeping prints and stuff to a minimal and keeping using the space that's there.
Yes.
And I just have this vision of any of the works that will possibly be placed on the ground or on stumps of like old trees, or maybe in like natural like tree trunks going off in different directions, or like you say, hanging off fences and stuff. And I'm just wondering about those smaller delicate pieces that might get lost if they're in the meadowland, and I'm just wondering if it's still possible to bring something that you can display the work on or in.
Yeah.
For that reason, like I could understand if there was a larger cast piece or something that it could be standing in situ and would look fine, but I'm just thinking of the smaller pieces that might just get lost in that greenscape.
Yeah, I think that like it's hard to say for definite
Until you see the piece.
until you see the piece.
Yeah.
So if you are like a piece of advice, like would be if you're unsure, go to a park, go to a garden and
Yeah.
take a couple of test pieces of what you think would look good and what it needs to
Okay.
stand out. Because if you have something really small, I'm like looking around my studio going like, how would that work? Like say I've got this like beautiful engraved glass pen. If I put that down on as you say, like a piece of moss or something, it will probably just fade into the background. But if I put it on, a piece of paper on that background as a stage, it's just so, it's not like it's things that are not massive. You wouldn't want like a big plinth, like a big white box
No. Yeah.
sitting out of nowhere, but like something that's quite subtle. Maybe it's like a piece of fabric, like that kind of thing. But I think an example, and you don't have to have it all figured out by the deadline. The bit that's more important for getting the stuff in is like, why do you want to, like, why this piece?
Yeah. No, it's a great concept. Thanks very much. So I'll keep the Lincoln hat on and get the video made, I suppose, as soon as possible, so we can start that discussion of how to put it in situ then, if you're selected. Like,
yeah, I think so, because it's that thing of like, you're like, until I know what I'm working with, I don't really know how it will work. So,
and I'm not going to show you now because that's just only going to ruin everyone else's evening. So
okay, that's great. Has anybody else? It was recorded, and I will share it. We'll put it on the Glass Society members area, right, Ali?
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, I'll send over the video as soon as it's there, so anyone who's missed out can watch it back.
So I was planning on going down to have a look at the area myself, probably sometime in the first week of August, because our deadline for applications is the 12th of August. So what I'll probably do is put a post into the Facebook group to say I'm going to go down on this day if anyone wants to join me, have a look around the site, so you can kind of get a feel and an idea of like where some of your stuff might go. But feel free, like it's open to the public, so feel free to go down there yourselves and have a look. And that always helps when you can visualize it.
Yeah, I think the opening hours, it's linked on the Glass Society website anyway, but I feel like it's like Wednesday to Sunday or something like that. They get a lot of gardening visitors, and I think it's just like an honesty box, sort of, pay to visit. It's free, but I think you can drop a couple of coins in if you're there. So yeah, that's about it. I put my email if anyone wants to ask me any direct questions or ask for any help. But yeah, buddy up, use our Facebook group, as Ali said, and if you're able to visit before you go, that's really good for context. But if you can't, don't freak out about it. You'll be there on the day. There'll be plenty of time to, I think very often like what you think you might do and then what you end up doing can sometimes be different. And we will have a team of people on installation morning working that out, and we'll try and do as much of it as possible in advance as well. So yeah, hopefully we'll all be together in September hanging out, and the weather will be great. Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks for the enthusiasm.
Thanks, Maeve. Thanks, Alison. Take care.